Hey y'all, it's Brenda. I am tonight's host. Unfortunately, our executive director is out of town. She is doing, the work. She is out there just getting some info and getting ready to prepare for this midterm election in November, this general election. So I am stepping in today. Thank you for joining us. I hope you all can tune in, like, share, all the good stuff. MIMS has been about the midterm election this season, this summer, as we're getting close to our general election in November. And today I wanted to really talk about the housing crisis we have going on. We all know that the rent is high. We know it's just becoming very impossible just to kind of live at this point, especially here in Southern Nevada. And it's just so unfortunate. So I really wanted to bring some really awesome folks, who are on the ground doing the work to kind of let us know what we can do as everyday folks to make a change and really kind of see what we can do and get things going. So I am really excited about this because I think this is really great information. I am a mom. So yes, I'm on all the moms Facebook groups, and it breaks my heart to really see everyday folks just trying to make it work and talking about, eviction notices, all these other things that are happening, and just seeking information. So that is one of the goals. Hopefully this helps someone out to guide them, give them advice on what to do. But I am going to be bringing on three awesome folks. We have Andy Romero from Make the Road. We have Elida Amador from the Culinary. And we have AssemblyWomen Considine joining us. Let me see how I'm going to bring them on. Here they are. Hey, y'all. Oh, okay. Hopefully our Assemblywoman is somewhere out there and she can join us. But Andy, can you, 2 minutes, tell us what you're doing at Make the Road around our housing crisis right now?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Andy Romero from Make the Road Nevada. And what I do here with Make the Road, we're just trying to empower our immigrant communities all around the state and just build a grassroots foundation, just elevating the working class and just bringing that equality. Our here in Las Vegas, the immigrant community has grown so much, so I want to make sure that we're able to benefit from all the resources available to us.
Awesome. And you're going out and knocking on doors, correct?
Yes. So I'm the housing organizer. So I'm literally on the ground, knocking on these doors, making calls, talking to Vegas residents here, and just really hearing them out about their struggles, their stories, their experiences dealing with the housing crisis we're experiencing.
Okay. Elida, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Right. A little for personal. So I'm here for the community. I work in the Culinary Union, Local 226, for support for the stability to neighborhood. Because I'm come here, Nevada, in 2015, and I'm start work in the school, and I rent. I pay 15, but I live for 4 years. I earned more than $50,000, and my husband say, "Hey, let's go to buy house because it's too much." I was only them. The yard is too small. I can put frames in the wall, plants, nothing, and no pits. My son go outside for rent apartments, and it doesn't pay. For 2 bedroom, it's 15 too. They say, "Hey, mom, it's too much." Las Vegas. I like North Las Vegas. My area is so quiet. It's clean. I like it, but it's too much. But now, I don't know what happened. Prices is ridiculous. So my husband and me think, and they say, "Okay, let's go buy." I buy my home 2 years ago. So now it's better. I have my big space. It's 4 bedroom, and I pay the same thing, 15. So we do something. So that's why I'm support this petition for my family, for my friends, for my community, because I don't like that people say, hey, my rent is over now again. So it's not good. So I'm excited with my job for the culinary for the community. So that I'm support. So yeah, the for election for November 8th, we need support for pass.
Thank you. I appreciate that. AssemblyWomen? Can you hear me?
Who, me?
No, AssemblyWomen Considine.
Oh.
No? Uh-oh. If you need to get back on, don't worry. We can do that. Okay, we might have lost her. Let's see if we bring her back in. I do definitely want to highlight the neighborhood stability ordinance and their goals. I know that Culinary is definitely working right now in preventing rent increases in North Las Vegas from exceeding the cost of living. And this is so important because this is what's going to help a lot of working families, you know, as much as I know Make the Road, Make It Work, and Culinary, like one of our biggest issues is economic justice, right? And this rent increase is part of an injustice. Okay, I think I have AssemblyWomen back. Can you hear us? Yes? We can hear you,
Can you hear me?
AssemblyWomen. Yes.
I can't hear you.
Oh, no. Let me see.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to figure out if I can help you out from my end. Let's see. I only have mic settings. Nope. Okay, you know, there's always technical difficulties when we go live. It's always a thing. I'm sure you all know this. But I really want to thank you all, even AssemblyWomen, joining us. And I appreciate it. I know Make the Road and Make It Work has been also working, and Culinary actually have been working on the Nevada Housing Justice Alliance Coalition. And I know that we have a lot of the similar goals as well. But I definitely want to talk about what we're hearing on the ground right now in the way of, Andy, you're knocking on doors. Like, what are the things that you've been hearing from our families?
Yes, similar to what's been said here. A lot of them have big concerns that the rent is just too high. And they, the next step is, of course, home ownership. But that just seems to them impossible at this point when your rent is just as much as mortgage and you're trying to buy a home, but you keep getting outbid by all these corporate landlord companies. So it's a lot of frustration out on the streets. And the biggest concern is with this heat in Las Vegas, especially this year. A lot of them are getting, their leases are up for renew, and they're getting those big, rent increases, and they feel stuck. They don't want to pay $200 to $300 additional for a year, but they also know that that's the price range all over Las Vegas. So it's just kind of dealing with two things that just really, really make it difficult for a living. I know that we just had a recent minimum wage increase, but that's just not enough, to compete with these rent prices. And so there's just a lot of fear that they're stuck in this rent cycle. Don't feel like they're going to be home ownership, and they're really getting kicked out of their own city. We hear a lot of news about these new homes being built, but none of them are for affordable housing or low-income communities. So it's just kind of another additional smack in the face for them to see that these houses are being built, but none of them are made for them to even be considered. So that's just a hard reality. And they want change, definitely want change.
Do you think that they have, in a way, tied it to our minimum wage in Nevada? How it doesn't increase, how I feel so far behind. We're only increasing 25 cents a year. Do you think that that is also something that we need to let everyday folks, know like, hey, this all kind of just plays in together.
Absolutely. Just July 1st was the increase that has happened, and it was hard to take it as a celebration when, that increase doesn't really seem much compared to what you're paying now. A lot of these, like we see this increase everywhere, even like at the smallest level of simplest thing is like the dollar store no longer a dollar, right? But again, we get a 25-cent increase every year. So the balance is not there. It's hard to make those celebrations. So it's definitely a reality, and does coexist having able to have a livable wage and be able to pay this rent, this high increase of rent here in Las Vegas.
And I know, let me see if I know I had seen that she was able to hear us now, but now I don't see her. There you are. Hello.
Yay! Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you. Do you hear us?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
No,
My phone
okay.
just stopped in the middle. So
It's, technologies are, the issues, and especially during lives, because I do pre-recorded shows all the time and I never have these many issues, I think, unless I'm doing a live. AssemblyWomen, can you just give a 2-minute kind of just introduction of yourself, just so everyone kind of knows who you are and the work that you do?
Sure. I'm Venetia Considine. I just finished my first legislative session representing Assembly District 18, which is on the east side of Las Vegas. Boulder Highway sort of runs right through the middle of my district. I've lived in Las Vegas for 32 years. The first time that I lived here, I actually lived on Boulder Highway at a KOA in an RV. And I actually moved back to Vegas 32 years ago because this was where I could build a life. This is where if you lived in a campground, you could still come here, get a job that paid you enough to rent an apartment and to get a car and, eventually pay for college. And because I had that ability to do it, I was able to do that. Actually went to Boyd Law School part-time at night, became an attorney, started working at the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada in 2008, and I've been here ever since. A lot of this housing stuff is really close to me for several reasons, but one of them being that when I first started working at Legal Aid was right when the recession hit and the foreclosure crisis hit. And the first 4 or 5 years of my legal life, I literally spent helping and fighting to keep people in their homes. And to sort of see this repetitive process of housing going crazy and then collapsing and then going crazy, and potentially we'll see what happens in the future, but that really affecting working class and people, making less money than middle class or working class, suffering the most throughout it. So it's a little bit about me.
Yes, that's a lot. And actually, I am really excited that you're joining us, because I definitely wanted someone from Legal Aid to come in, because one of my questions is, what is a pattern you have seen since the pandemic happened? 2020 happened. A lot of folks lost, their jobs, or they just kind of were laid off, and it was pretty chaotic. I remember I was really in a situation where I couldn't leave my apartment when I was living in an apartment. I was planning to kind of move out, and everything was just frozen, and I kind of wanted to see what you all saw on that end at Legal Aid Center, in a way of how it happened during the pandemic, and once things were lifted, basically letting folks know how bad it got and why we're here now.
Well, I know from my point of view and from Legal Aid, we saw almost a repeat of 2008 as far as so many people losing their job and losing their income, and people who didn't have a significant amount of savings, if they didn't have any options as far as they had nowhere to go. They couldn't go find a job to make up for the job that they lost because, so many things were shut down, and that went on for so long. And then a lot of people who had jobs in industries, let's say, at the supermarket or or service industries, or those industries where they were still face to face with people, even wanting to keep that job, when you get to the point where you have to consider whether or not my health is worth my job, and being treated so poorly, like so many people on the front lines were treated, whether that's, worth keeping your job or not. Luckily, at least for renters, there was a lot of funding that came through the federal government and then through the state to keep people in their apartments or in their houses. A lot of mortgage companies learned from the recession to just put people in forbearance. Okay, we'll forbear your mortgage payments for a year. But that doesn't happen when you're renting. When you're renting, they want your rent monthly. So a lot of the rental assistance was really helpful. But since it took a lot of time to get it to begin with, if your lease ran out, you could have gotten, assistance with your rent, but you had to get it fast enough before your lease ran out, because although the protections from AB 486, which was a bill we passed in the legislature last year, it helped you stay in your apartment because you could get the funding to pay off your lease. But if you were outside of your lease and there was what's called a no cause eviction, then the landlord could just say, well, I could just let you go. It's not for a lack of money. It's not for any reason. It's just, I can let you go because you're not under a lease. And that sort of has spiraled. So right now we have a situation where you have a lot of landlords who obtained all of that money from all of those CHAPS and CARES and RAFT and all of those, essential assistance for renters. But then when leases are up, those tenants are still getting kicked out if they are not making enough money to pay the rent, or if they are making enough money to pay their rent, but now the lease is up $400, $500, $600, and they are not, back at a job that is paying them sufficient amount to pay it. We're still seeing significant evictions with that.
And Elida, may I ask, what year did you buy your home?
Say again?
What year did you buy your home?
And two years ago.
Okay, so during the pandemic 2020. Wow, that's, how was that experience for you, buying your home during a pandemic?
My home?
Yes.
Yes. I don't have problem with that because the mortgage is the same. I don't know how to explain you with the pandemic, but my neighbors have problems because the owners, they rent next to me in the front because they lost the job, pandemic. So he need a move and come back a new neighbors. That's different. But now it's good. I don't have problem with the pandemic, only for the jobs. It's the less hours, it's less money. But I was my husband and I support. So it's the balance for pay. I'm happy because the Culinary returned to and I have my job. So I don't know how anymore.
I want to thank you though, because even though you're a homeowner now, you are still out here doing the fight for everyone else, right? And you're setting an example, I think, as a homeowner, because I feel like it's basically the way we're organizing, right? Sometimes the people closest to the problem are closest to the solution. We hear it all the time. And you coming from that, Elida, I really thank you, because you are still connected to it and you're still here fighting for everyone else. Andy, during this pandemic, as AssemblyWomen was sharing, there was a lot of folks who were facing eviction. I know Make It Work, we had, some of our organizers doing office hours that we called it, where we kind of let folks call in, make an appointment, and we were assisting with CHAPS applications. And I'm sure, I think you all did something similar, correct?
That's correct. Yes. Throughout the pandemic, we've been helping renters filling out the CHAP applications. Similar to what you explained, these been happening in real time. A lot of them expected to rent. There had no work during the pandemic. And they also had that fear, as they mentioned, as soon as their lease was up, they were going to be forced to kicked out or evicted. And these people, were living paycheck to paycheck. So it was already hard enough to live without it. So they definitely had a lot of battles to overcome. Even situations where they get evicted, we assist them with a renters program for budget suites, but then they have issues there. We have issues with budget suites, but things like that. So there was never really a program, and that kind of like really put it into perspective for them. There was really no housing assistance or anything like that. If people who needed it right then and there and now really suffered the most during the pandemic and the houses crazy. A lot of them became homeless, had to live in their car for a moment until they got their feet on the ground. So they're really, as much as terrified they were with the pandemic and being feared, they're ready to hit the streets and go back to work because they had no other choice, or else they wouldn't have a home.
This is where we talk about this fight, right? Like, it's just all a balance of economic justice, reproductive justice. Like, all these justices have to they align together, because you did have to make a choice at this point. I think about also parents with the homeschooling during the pandemic, which is a whole other conversation, right? Because you're balancing being a parent and working from home at a point. But I know I'm going to ask this as what I've seen on Facebook, right? And our community members asking and hoping one of you probably can give a correct answer would be, can you still apply for CHAPS now?
Yes.
Yes. Can you all tell us what the requirements are?
It's just simply like, once you get the eviction notice, you have 5 days to respond to it, and that's the most important thing. There's website links all over that direct you to this application, and there's services like Make the Road, Make It Work, and other ongoing programs that can walk you through it. The most important thing is I always say, is once you get the notice, or once you to respond to it, to reach out for help, because there's as much as we have a protection, there's really not a lot. So once some time passes, you really SOL. So it really is important about time efficiency and reaching out when you don't know what to do for that support. There is programs like myself out there that are out there available to help.
And at what point do we reach out to legal aid? Immediately when we get the notice?
If you get an eviction notice, the best thing that I would say to do is, like Andy said, don't wait. Go to the Civil Law Self-Help Center at the Regional Justice Center. Everything in there is free. They can walk you through a lot of the things that you would need. You want to file an answer. You don't want to leave an eviction unanswered, because you have a defense. If you have applied for rental assistance, you cannot be evicted, but that's not automatic. You have to get in front of a judge to stop that eviction if the landlord is going to go forward with that eviction. But you can apply for rental assistance the day you get your eviction notice. You can apply for it before. I also want to point out, if you've gotten rental assistance before, you can apply again, as long as you haven't gone, I think it's 15 or 20 months, like you haven't gotten rent for that long. There's a maximum amount of months that you can get your rent back paid. But if you've done less than that, you can apply for another round of rental assistance. Also, the civillawselfhelpcenter.org website has all of your legal forms for eviction that you can fill in online if you needed to, or you can come down to Legal Aid Center itself for all of the eviction issues. Legal Aid Center can help with a warm handoff to somebody. We can walk somebody through filling out their rental assistance forms, but that's not something that we do. We don't actually do it like Make the Road or other entities do. But anyone who gets any type of anything taped to their door. So just to back it up a step, for a lot of people who moved here to Nevada has something that's called summary eviction, unlike anywhere else in the country, I believe, where you can get a notice taped to your door that just looks like somebody typed it up, and it is technically the first step in our eviction process. The way summary eviction works is when somebody gets that 7-day pay or quit or 5-day or whatever notice that they get, the tenant has to file an answer in court to actually create a court case. There is no court case unless that tenant files that answer in that situation. So that's why it's super important, if you get anything on your door, to reach out, go to the Civil Law Self-Help Center, Legal Aid, just someone to make sure that you know what you have and what your opportunities or options are, and get that eviction in court so that you have time. You can get in front of a judge, you can apply for rental assistance, and then immediately end that eviction.
Yes, thank you so much for that, because it's very important to really remind folks that they need to, get on it as soon as possible. I understand, we're in a state that like we're barely fighting for, pay time off, right? And I understand we're in a place where we have folks living paycheck to paycheck who cannot afford to take, a day. But this is honestly so important that I really want to keep pushing. As soon as you get something on your door, please seek help as soon as you can. Resources. I want to ask my producer out there, Tamara, if she can kind of just get on the website that you just shared and shared on our comments, or we will kind of look it up and we will post it on our website, because that is a great, link to let folks know and kind of just help them out, right? Because a lot of the things that I see on Facebook from, mom groups is that they don't know what to do. They just get a letter. Their first thought is kind of like, I'm, like you said, SOL, I've just got to pack my stuff and go. But no, you definitely have options out there. I also wanted to ask, I know, what's the best advice you can give to someone who already kind of has an idea that they might not be able to make their rent that week or that month, right? The upcoming month, and they're trying to get a hold of their landlord. Is there a best way to approach that? I think about landlords, sometimes they're just not communicative at all either. What are some things that you can advise?
When it comes to that, I mean, that's one of the questions when I go to doors is knocking, is asking, is like, do you know who your landlord is? Are you, do you have a connection, an open connection? Because a lot of the times, they have never met them, lived there for a couple of years and never met them, never had an issue, so never need to know until a situation comes up. So my always advice is to have that open communication with their landlord, with that company. And there is resource out there. I know that we always kind of put that fear. We need more, of course, but there is resource out there that does help for housing resources and organization. So I always, always ask, make sure that you go to your community and look for those resources who are out there to help. And majority of it is kind of, keep that fight up. A lot of the things is I do this particular is because I want the community to know, like, the tenant rights, as many as they're not, the more that is like, the more you'll be protected. So, a lot of these landlords use that fear factor, the fact that they don't know their rights, the fact that they feel like there isn't any, and to scare them away, to do whatever they need to do to increase their bottom line. So definitely do your research. Go out there in your community. Just like myself, Make the Road, we're always out there and we always want to share this knowledge, and you want the community to be in the know and be a part of it so we can make a change like this election coming up.
And if I can add on to that, check your lease. Your lease should have the contact information for your landlord. If you're in a situation, if you're in a situation where you're not an apartment complex where it's fairly easy to get a hold of your property manager or go to an office, check your lease for your landlord's information. If you can't find it on there, or the information on there is dated or it doesn't work, you can go on, let's say, like the assessor's page, or on the Nevada Secretary of State's page, and look them up, because anyone who has a business, which if you have multiple houses, you should have a license, a property manager permit, a real estate license, something. And there has to be like a resident agent. If all of this seems incredibly confusing, you can always reach out to Legal Aid and we can try to help you find that as well. Because we do suggest the first step is that you try to work something out with the landlord so that there's not a surprise. If you know halfway through the month that you're struggling and you're not going to be able to make rent for the next month, and you talk to your landlord, whatever your landlord says, have 15 days to plan for it, which might be 15 days more than you thought you would have otherwise. Also, if you're even close to that situation, you should reach out to, as Andy said, some local assistance. Apply for utility assistance, apply for food assistance, see if you are eligible for any of the programs that are out there that frees up some of the money to pay your rent with. This way you can figure out some sort of a plan. What we see often is folks who come to us when they're ready in the eviction, when the stress is taking, toll on their health, where it's much harder to think everything through when really you have this fear that you're going to be living in your car in 2 weeks. So if you know that something's happening, it's hard to kind of take that step and do it, but do it and kind of start planning as early as you can. There are a lot of good landlords out there that will say, let's work out a repayment plan. There's landlords out there that will say, you know what, let me help you fill out an application to get you rental assistance. There are also landlords out there that are say, oh, wait, you're not going to be able to pay your rent. Well, then I'm going to plan to evict you, or I'm going to evict you. And, you know, the worst case scenario starts happening. But I think it's just much better for any tenant to know as early as they can so they can make plans, so they're not in sort of an emergency situation at the last minute.
And I have, go ahead.
Sorry. Just wanted to add, Legal Aid Center has a landlord tenant rights class once, I think every Thursday. It's on our website, but you can come and see it, and you can also access the materials online. So if you're thinking, okay, my job right now, I'm paying for things, but I don't know what's going to happen. My lease is up in 3 months. I want to know my rights. You can come to a free class and get all that information really early.
And it's free. I definitely was going to talk about your website, because your website, actually, the Legal Aid Center, has so much information on there. I definitely wish, you know, we could put this everywhere around town, just the website alone, because it is very informative. They have, correct me if I'm wrong, a one-pager on just kind of tenant rights, correct?
Yes.
Yep, the tenant rights one, you know, I am the one that I care about my neighbors, so I would print some out when I was living in my apartment and kind of just share with some of my neighbors, because it was just, I would see it in my own, you know, neighborhood that this was happening, and that's just where we're at. So as we're talking about the midterms and tying this whole crisis we have going on right now, what are some legislation besides AB 486 in 2019? What are some other bills that kind of just came about during the session that helped, you know, tenants?
So that is probably the main one that made it through, as far as tenants are concerned, because by the time we got into the legislature, there were multiple bills, as a freshman legislator, I don't know everything. You know, I wasn't familiar with how everything worked, but the one that came out was the 486. I do want to say, though, that whoever is in the seats in the legislature really matters. That makes a difference. We had a female majority legislature, and because of that, I think the conversations we had on a lot of like equality, as far as childcare, as far as period poverty, as far as, you know, the tenants' rights, economic justice, criminal justice, all of those sort of day-to-day, what most people deal with situations were really upfront in a lot of that legislative session. Whereas when you have a lot of folks who have never lived paycheck to paycheck, or, you know, have never done the bologna sandwiches for 2 weeks in order to pay your rent, or, you know, put $5 of gas in your car because that's, you know, the amount of money that you have. If you've never experienced it, I believe that there are some people that really don't understand the effects of that and how hard that is. So I just want to kind of underline the fact that voting matters, because whether or not you vote, someone else is going to vote. So if you want your issues heard and given a chance, voting does not guarantee you an outcome, but it does give a chance for the right people who believe what you believe and are aligned with your ideals to get into office and make those changes. I think it would be really hard, especially with what Culinary has been doing with their ballot initiative, to avoid a lot of landlord tenant, a lot of raising costs, a lot of economic things in the next legislative session. But it also depends on who are in those seats and making those bills and voting those bills out when they do come up.
Andy, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I agree. I do like to add, you know, I consider myself just kind of like the regular people in the community. Like, I don't really like as for knowledgeable of politics, but what I do know is, like, I'm out on the ground. I hear our residents and our community speak, and yes, they want these rent caps, not just in North Las Vegas, but all over. We need some type of rent control. And also, like, you know, the ability or pathway to home ownership. You know, right now it just seems impossible. It feels like we're stuck in this rent cycle. And these corporate landlords are not making it easy by just adding just some honestly ridiculous fees. You would be surprised at the fees that I hear from these leases and from these residents, just because they can, and because there's no restrictions. There's no one to say you can't. And because of the demands there, they're going to pay for it. So I always encourage, like for me, it's like I encourage, get to know your district, get to know who's running, and make those smart decisions, because those are the ones, as you mentioned, are, the vote may not necessarily cause you the win, but it makes a huge difference and it gives you that voice back. I always tell, again, our community is growing every year by the bit, and we want it heard, and we feel like we're always, as low immigrant communities here, we feel like we're always neglected. So this is our opportunity. And, here in Las Vegas, we're so diverse. I feel like, it's just a matter of getting that knowledge to get to know, like, hey, voting is important. It matters. It's part of, the pathway to change. I think just kind of like clicking that with our community back. I feel like they lost a lot of faith, but we know that this is the path to change. And I think they're slowly moving into, especially now where there's such panic, they feel no choice but to change. And I think it's up to us to show them how to make those changes. And that's why, again, I'm in the streets to let them know that voting is the best way to get these these day-to-day life changes, this minimum wage increase, these housing rent controls.
There's so much on the line right now. I think we're just at a time right now where people, I wouldn't want to say they're finally fed up, because I feel like folks have been fed up. But I think as we're bringing in the new generation of, new folks trying to own homes and seeing all these obstacles, right, of just kind of adulting, how we call it, I think, it's starting to kind of just click in together. And I know, AssemblyWomen, you wanted to add something else. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
So elected officials are no different than anyone else. The people that I served with came from all different areas of Las Vegas, all different walks of life. We all answer the phone or we answer emails. Also, we are state legislators. If you don't know who your elected officials are, that's totally fine. You can look them up. If you don't know, I can give you my email or put my phone number up on here. I will go and tell everyone who every single elected official is, from their county commissioner or their city council person to the legislature, to the Congress, to every level. And you should call them or email them and get to know them, because I think one of the issues that national politics has filtered down to local politics is this idea that any elected official is, untouchable. And I don't mean untouchable because they're on a different plane, but that they don't know what's going on, or that there's somebody you can't have a conversation with. And if you have a conversation with any of your elected officials, I think two great things happen. One, you feel more involved in politics, because you can see that they put their pants on the same way you do, and that all this is somebody making a decision and they just need input. And the second great thing about it is you realize that anyone can do this. Anyone can run for office. For the legislature, it cost $100, and then I had to go and sign up. Anyone that can run for office. So never think you can't do it. And maybe the first step in finding out how you can make change is you become an organizer, you work with an organization, but you should also reach out to the people that are making those decisions, not only to get your voice heard, but to break down any barriers or walls that you think exist between you and your elected officials.
I definitely want to add a third one of, when you do contact your elected officials, it's also, I think, a great reminder for them. And they're able to put faces to the issues, right? They're going to be like, oh, I will fight for minimum wage because I'm thinking about, Sally, who has 5 kids and is barely making, her rent, and she's a single parent. I feel like you can tie it all in and kind of just put faces to the stories. This is why I'm a big advocate of getting people politically involved, showing up, testifying, doing public comment, all of it, because we do need these faces to the stories for our elected officials. But not just only there. This is why I wanted to have this conversation, because we all understand that housing right now is a big thing. We're in a midterm election. We should not be waiting for a presidential election to do anything about anything, right? I think I know our executive director once said that midterm elections, like the Winter Olympics, nobody really pays attention to it, but it's just as important. Yes, that's definitely what it is. I even think it's more important because it's really focused on our local elections, right? We're voting on our judges. Our judges are so important right now because these are the folks you will be facing if you are evicted. You have to pay attention to them now. What are they doing? What's their history? Where did they come from? Our legislators, folks who are running for state assembly, who are running for assembly now too. Where are they coming from? What's their background? Will they really fight for working families in Nevada? So it's not just waiting for them to get elected. We need to start doing this research now, before they get there. I really hope this encourages folks out there to see I hope this episode I really thank you all because this was a lot of great information, and I'm definitely have to do work on linking all these websites and all these resources in this comment thread on our Facebook, because I hope people can just kind of go back to it and click it if they have, questions, if they need help. And two, I hope it encourages them to pay more attention because, Assembly and State voted on, AB 486, and that's important. They voted on how our minimum wage is going to be increased by year, and they vote on PTR, paid time off, and how that works, right? So these are the people you have to be paying attention because they are going to make decisions who are affecting our everyday life. But please, thank you all for joining us. I really hope this was informative. I think everyone, I am so excited and I hope this helps somebody. Do you all have any closing statements though?
Yes. I just want to say that I am continuing the fight on the streets. So if anybody who's interested in leadership and organizing, especially in the housing crisis, I am available. My website is maketheroadnv.org. You can always reach out there.
And I would just say that no matter how many people move to Clark County, it's still a small town. You will run into people that you know, but that also means you're not alone. No matter what your situation is, call someone. If you don't know who to call an elected official, call legal aid, call Make the Road, call Make It Work, call somebody so that you can get some help with whatever you need, because we are a community. And people sometimes, I think, just need to feel like they're part of it.
Yes. And I definitely want to remind folks to please keep an eye out for the Nevada Housing Justice Alliance. This coalition is built out of so many of our partners. We have Culinary, we have Make the Road, we have Planned Parenthood, ACLU of Nevada, and ourselves. So please keep a lookout for that. I know there's so many things that we're working on right now to prepare for the upcoming legislative session. Yes, there's a session coming up at the beginning of next year, but we have elections in November. So remember that who you vote for in November is going to be making the decisions for us at the beginning of next year. Please get out to vote. Our website, Make It Work, www.makeitworknevada.org. You can get more information on how to vote, where to register to vote, and everything. All your needs are there. Thank you all so much. I hope you all can use this. Let your friends know. If tag someone that you know is going through something and needs just some information, please tag them down below and share it, because information is powerful. Really sharing all the information can be very, very powerful. And this is how we're going to get free together. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.